A football coach walked into a press conference. A reporter raised a hand. And 12 words came out of his mouth that made the entire internet forget, for about 45 minutes, that training camp had anything to do with football. The reporter asked about the wedding. Mike Vrabel, head coach of the New England Patriots, looked at the reporter and said, "It was good. Thank you. It was a fairy tale, or whatever she says in that song. But thanks for asking. That's it. That's the whole thing. 12 words. It was a fairy tale, or whatever she says in that song." He did not say the song title. He did not say, "Today was a fairy tale," the 2010 Taylor Swift track that he was clearly thinking of, with the lyrics about being the prince and the damsel and the fairy tale moment. He just gestured at the song. Or whatever she says in that song. Like a man who has absorbed enough Taylor Swift in the last 3 years of his professional life that the melody exists somewhere in his brain, but the title is not something he is willing to look up or confirm on a football podium. And then he moved on to questions about his injured players. Mike Vrabel was at Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's wedding on July 3, 2026. He brought his wife Jen. They were inside Madison Square Garden when Paul McCartney sang, "I Want to Hold Your Hand," for the first time in 62 years. They were in the room with the 5-story glowing trees and the gold books and the Dior gowns and the secret garden built on an NBA arena floor. They were there for the sweep you off your feet kiss. And at a Patriots training camp press conference on July 27th, when a reporter brought it up, the head coach of the New England Patriots said it was a fairy tale, or whatever she says in that song. This is the story of that moment. And it is more layered, more interesting, and more genuinely delightful than a 12-word press conference answer has any right to be. Let's start with the people. Because Mike Vrabel and Travis Kelce are not a random pairing. They are connected in ways that predate everything about the Taylor Swift era, that predate the Eras Tour and the friendship bracelets and the first Chiefs game in September 2023. They are connected through the thing that actually matters to both of them. Football. Travis Kelce was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs in 2013. He has been with the Chiefs his entire professional career. He has not played a single professional snap in any other uniform. He is, in the most permanent possible sense, a Kansas City Chief. Mike Vrabel played for the Kansas City Chiefs in 2009 and 2010. He was near the end of his playing career at that point. He finished his playing days in Kansas City after spending the prime years of his career with the New England Patriots, where he won 3 Super Bowl championships. But he was a Chief. He wore the red and gold. He was in that building, on that practice field, in that locker room. The Chiefs of 2009 and 2010 were a very different team from the Chiefs of 2026. Travis Kelce was a 20-year-old college student at the University of Cincinnati when Vrabel was wearing Kansas City red. They did not overlap as players. Their paths in Kansas City were separated by about 3 years. But the organization, the culture, the bond between people who share an NFL franchise, those things create connections that persist long after the players have moved on. And then there is the coaching history. After his playing career ended, Vrabel moved into coaching. Ohio State. Then the Houston Texans as a linebackers coach, then defensive coordinator. Then he got his first head coaching job, the Tennessee Titans, in 2018. And he coached the Titans for 6 years, through multiple playoff appearances, through an AFC championship game, through seasons that defined the trajectory of that franchise. For several of those years, he was coaching an AFC team against the Chiefs. He was preparing game plans against Travis Kelce specifically. He was diagramming coverages for his defensive backs, identifying Kelce's routes, figuring out how to slow down the most unstoppable weapon in the AFC. He spent years being professionally adversarial with Travis Kelce in the most fundamental football sense, opposing team, opposing coaching staff, trying to win the games that Travis Kelce was trying to win. And then, after Vrabel left the Titans following the 2023 season, he spent the 2024 year as a consulting figure with the Cleveland Browns while the NFL figured out its next move. And then the Patriots called. January 2025. The New England Patriots, the most storied franchise in NFL history over the previous 2 decades, the team that had won 6 Super Bowls under Bill Belichick, had bottomed out. They went 4-13 under Jared Mayo in 2024. They needed a rebuild. They needed a coach who could take a young quarterback named Drake May and build something around him. They called Vrabel. He took the job. And in his first season, his first year back in New England, his second year in the AFC East, Mike Vrabel turned the Patriots around completely. 14 wins and 3 losses in the regular season. A playoff run that went all the way to Super Bowl 60. A Super Bowl. In his first year, they lost to the Seattle Seahawks. 13-29. It was not the ending everyone hoped for. But the turnaround was real, and the accomplishment was extraordinary, and Mike Vrabel was named Coach of the Year for the second time in his career, the first time a Patriots coach had won the award since Bill Belichick in 2010. So this is where Mike Vrabel is in July 2026. He is the head coach of the New England Patriots. He is the AFC's most respected coaching presence. He is a man who spent years trying to stop Travis Kelce from catching touchdown passes. And he was at Travis Kelce's wedding. Because here is the thing about the NFL that is easy to forget when you're watching it from the outside. The coaches and players and their families, they know each other. They see each other at league events and training camps and charity functions and award ceremonies. They are professional adversaries on Sundays from September through January and people with a lot of shared experience the rest of the year. The NFL is a relatively small world. 1,300 active players. 32 head coaches. A circuit of events and gatherings that puts the same people in the same rooms over and over for years. Travis Kelce and Mike Vrabel have been in many of those rooms. They have shaken hands and made conversation and done the professional dance that people do in a competitive league where you are also, in some real sense, all in it together. And Travis Kelce invited him to the wedding. He brought his wife Jen. Jen Vrabel. Because if there is a person in this story who deserves their own moment, it is Jen Vrabel. And not just because she was at the wedding. Because of how she got to the wedding. The story of Jen and Mike Vrabel, told correctly, is one of the best origin stories in NFL coaching history. Ohio State University. 1993. Freshman year. Jen Bullen, she had not yet become Jen Vrabel, was sitting in a time management class. This is the kind of class that universities require freshmen to take, the kind designed to teach 18-year-olds how to organize their lives now that nobody is doing it for them. The kind that, in any normal scenario, is completely forgettable. And she noticed him. This enormous person. This 6'4", 261-pound linebacker sitting somewhere in the lecture hall. And she found him funny enough, based on whatever he was saying or doing in the time management class that apparently required someone to be funny, that she asked the professor for his phone number. She asked the professor for his phone number. Not Mike. The professor. She walked up to the person running the class and said, "That guy, I need his number." And she got it. They dated through college. She was a volleyball player, a very good one. 2-time All-Big Ten selection. 2-time academic All-Big Ten. An accomplished athlete in her own right. He became an All-American linebacker, 2-time All-Big Ten, academic All-Big Ten as well. 2 student athletes who met in a required freshman class and stayed together through 4 years of college and then through the NFL and through coaching and through everything that followed. They married in 1999. They have been together since the time management lecture in 1993. 33 years. Mike Vrabel has said that Jen challenged him to get into the NFL when he was not sure he was going to make it. She was the one who pushed. She was the one who said, "You can do this, get in there, prove it." He credits her, explicitly on the record, with his making the league in the first place. Without Jen Vrabel's challenge in the 1990s, there might not be a Mike Vrabel in the NFL. And they have navigated everything together. The playing career. The move into coaching. The Ohio State years as an assistant. The Houston Texans. The 6 years in Tennessee. The consulting year in Cleveland. The Patriots. The Super Bowl. The loss in the Super Bowl. And now Training Camp 2026, where a reporter asks about a wedding and Mike Vrabel says it was a fairy tale. Jen Vrabel was in that room at Madison Square Garden. She was in the secret garden with the 5-story trees and the 1,000 people and Paul McCartney. She watched Travis Kelce weep through the vows he read from a gold book. She was there when Taylor sang part of her own vows, the part nobody will ever hear because the phones were gone. She was there for the sweep you off your feet kiss. And then her husband went to a press conference 3 weeks later and called it a fairy tale, or whatever she says in that song. There are so many things to love about the press conference moment. Let's go through them. First, the phrasing. It was a fairy tale, or whatever she says in that song. The, or whatever she says in that song, is doing enormous work in that sentence. It is the phrase of a man who has been in Taylor Swift's orbit long enough to know the reference but not long enough to have the title memorized. It is the phrase of a person who attended one of the most culturally significant weddings in recent history and came away with the correct emotional description but not the precise lyrical attribution. Today Was a Fairy Tale was released in 2010 on the Valentine's Day film soundtrack. It is not one of Taylor's most famous songs. It is not Shake It Off or Blank Space or Anti-Hero or Love Story. It is a relatively deep cut from a film soundtrack released 16 years ago. The fact that Mike Vrabel, head coach of the New England Patriots, had some version of it in his head at a football press conference in July 2026, close enough to the concept to reach for it but not quite close enough to land the title, that is a very specific kind of celebrity adjacency comedy. Second, the speed of the pivot. He answered the question, completely, in 12 words, and then went directly to questions about Gabe Jacas's injury recovery and when the player might be ready to practice. He gave the wedding exactly as much time as it deserved, which is, "It was great, it was a fairy tale, thanks for asking," and then returned to the professional context he was sitting in. This is Mike Vrabel being Mike Vrabel. He is not a man who gives you more than you need. He gives you exactly what the moment requires. At a football press conference, the moment requires one answer about the wedding and then football. He delivered accordingly. Third, the context of who is asking. A reporter at a Patriots training camp press conference asking the head coach about a wedding. The reporter made the choice to ask, which means the reporter understood that the wedding was culturally significant enough to be worth the question in a football setting. And Vrabel's answer confirmed that it was worth the question. He didn't dismiss it. He didn't redirect immediately. He answered genuinely, "It was good, thank you, it was a fairy tale," and then moved on. That genuine first response. It was good. Thank you. The thank you is interesting. Who thanks someone for asking about a wedding? A person who is glad someone brought it up. A person who found the experience worth talking about and appreciated the opportunity to say so, briefly, before returning to his job. It was good. Thank you. It was a fairy tale. Let's go inside that night. Because Mike Vrabel was there. He saw it. And his 12-word summary, "It was a fairy tale," or whatever she says in that song, is, in its compressed and unpretentious way, exactly accurate. He was in a room that had been built to be fairy tale in the most specific sense. Not fairy tale in the generic, romantic event sense. Fairy tale in the Taylor Swift sense, which is a very specific and constructed and intentional kind of fairy tale. 5-story glowing trees. A garden built inside a basketball arena. 1,100 people in black tie. Paul McCartney singing, "I Want to Hold Your Hand." The most famous dress no one was allowed to photograph. Gold books. 20 minutes of vows. The smallest flower girls you've ever seen in the most famous arena in New York City. Mike Vrabel, 6'4", former linebacker, head coach of the New England Patriots, was in that room. With Jen. Watching all of it. And Gabe Davis, and Tyquan Thornton, and all the Patriots players at training camp that morning had no idea that their coach had spent the night of July 3rd in a secret garden at Madison Square Garden at the most famous wedding of the year. And then the reporter asked. And Vrabel said, "It was a fairy tale," or whatever she says in that song. The internet discovered the transcript of the press conference, published by the Patriots, because the Patriots publish full press conference transcripts, which is how we know the exact wording, within about 20 minutes. The clip spread. The sentence spread. "It was a fairy tale," or whatever she says in that song, became one of the most shared sports quotes of the week. Swifties discovered it and had a field day. Because the image of an NFL head coach referencing a Taylor Swift song lyric, however imprecisely, while sitting at a football podium is exactly the kind of thing that happens in 2026 when the sport and the music have been intertwined for 3 years and everyone from Adam Sandler to the NYPD commissioner has been touched by the same story. Or whatever she says in that song became its own thing. There were posts explaining which song it was. There were posts pointing out that a man who coached against Travis Kelce for years just attended his wedding and came out describing it in Taylor Swift terms. There were posts from people who had never heard of Mike Vrabel before July 27, 2026, who now knew him as the man who said it was a fairy tale. He confirmed what everyone who was in that room has confirmed in their own words. George Stephanopoulos, real, vulnerable, serious and silly, deeply loving. Robin Roberts, really intimate. Donna Kelce, magical, man, magical. Rich Eisen, pretty cool, dude, pretty cool. Eric Stonestreet, it was awesome. The AMC CEO who posted and deleted the most beautiful description that got taken down 12 minutes after it went up. Mike Vrabel, it was a fairy tale, or whatever she says in that song. Different words. Same conclusion. Everyone who was in that room came out with the same understanding of what they had witnessed. A real thing. An extraordinary thing. The kind of event that a football coach describes, imprecisely, briefly, accurately, as a fairy tale, or whatever she says in that song. Now let me tell you something about Mike and Jen Vrabel attending this wedding that I think gets at something larger about who Travis Kelce is and how he has built his life. Travis Kelce did not invite Mike Vrabel because Vrabel is famous. That is not how Travis Kelce operates. He invited people he has a genuine connection to. Relationships that have been built over years, in the specific and demanding context of professional football, through competition and mutual respect and the shared experience of doing an extremely difficult thing at the highest possible level. Mike Vrabel coached against Travis Kelce. Specifically, he built defensive schemes designed to contain him. He spent game weeks in Tennessee film rooms studying Travis Kelce's tendencies and strengths and the routes that are hardest to cover when he is running them. He knows what Travis Kelce can do on a football field in a way that most people on earth don't, because he is the kind of coach who pays that level of attention to the players he competes against. And underneath all of that professional adversarial attention, there is apparently a genuine human connection. Enough of one that when Travis Kelce built his guest list for the most important night of his life, Mike Vrabel and his wife Jen were on it. Jen Vrabel, who asked a professor for a football player's phone number in a time management lecture in 1993 and has been with him ever since. Who is half of one of the longest and most enduring marriages in NFL coaching history. Who was sitting in that secret garden at Madison Square Garden on July 3, 2026. And 3 weeks later, her husband was asked about it. And he said 12 words. And then he talked about injured players. That is Mike Vrabel. That is the full portrait. The wedding was good. Thank you for asking. It was a fairy tale. Or whatever she says in that song. And then, back to football. Stay with us. Because the season starts September 14th. And the teams involved in this wedding, the Chiefs and the Patriots, are going to see each other eventually. On a football field. And when they do, it will be the only time in NFL history that both head coaches have attended the same wedding. That is a fact. That is the world we live in now. And it is, more or less, a fairy tale. Now let me go one level deeper into why this specific guest at this specific wedding is so interesting from a football history perspective. Because the presence of Mike Vrabel at Travis Kelce's wedding is not just a funny press conference story. It is a window into the small, specific, interconnected world of professional football and the way relationships build across years of competition. Consider what Mike Vrabel has done in this sport. He played 14 seasons as a linebacker. He won 3 Super Bowls with the Patriots as a player. He is in the Patriots Hall of Fame. He was a defensive captain on some of the most dominant defenses in NFL history under Bill Belichick. He is, by any reasonable measure, one of the most accomplished figures in the history of the New England Patriots organization. And then he coached 6 years in Tennessee, a coaching record that earned him the respect of everyone in the league. And now he is back in New England, having taken the most celebrated franchise in recent NFL history from 4 wins to 14 in a single season to a Super Bowl appearance in his first year. This is a man of extraordinary professional accomplishment. And he is also a man who went to a wedding in July and described it at a press conference as a fairy tale, or whatever she says in that song. There is a version of the NFL universe in which Mike Vrabel and Travis Kelce are purely adversaries. Vrabel trying to stop the Chiefs' offense with his defense. Kelce trying to beat Vrabel's teams when they met in the playoffs. Both of them utterly professional about it, completely focused on winning, with no personal relationship outside the professional competition. That version does not appear to be the reality. The reality appears to be that they are connected through the league's social fabric in the way that people who have both spent their adult lives in this particular world are connected. through mutual respect, through shared experience, through the understanding that both of them have put enormous amounts of themselves into something that very few people on earth truly understand from the inside, and through whatever specific conversations and moments and events over the years built enough genuine warmth between them that Travis Kelce put Mike Vrabel and Jen Vrabel on the list for the most important night of his life. Consider also the Ohio State connection. Travis Kelce did not go to Ohio State, he went to the University of Cincinnati. But the connection between Ohio State and the NFL runs deep, and Vrabel's roots in Ohio, born in Akron, college in Columbus, long connection to the state, overlap with Travis's own Ohio origins, born in Cleveland, grew up in Ohio. There is something about two people who are both from Ohio, who both know what it means to grow up there and carry that identity into the professional world, that creates its own understated bond. And Jen Vrabel, who graduated from Ohio State in 1998, who has been supporting Mike Vrabel through every phase of his career for 33 years, she was in that room. In the black tie event of the year. In the secret garden. Watching it all. The reporters at the July 27th press conference who asked about the wedding probably expected a more guarded answer. The weddings of active players are sensitive topics during training camp. Coaches are not usually eager to discuss their personal lives at football podiums. The fact that Vrabel answered at all, briefly, warmly, accurately, says something about how the night registered with him. It was good. Thank you. It was a fairy tale. He is not a man who gives compliments he doesn't mean. Ask anyone who has played for him. Ask anyone who has covered him. Mike Vrabel says what he means in the most compressed possible form and then moves on. So when he says it was a fairy tale, even with the qualifier of, or whatever she says in that song, he means it was extraordinary. He means it was the kind of thing you do not see very often. He means that on July 3, 2026, he and his wife went to Madison Square Garden and experienced something that earned that word. And then he moved to the next question. That is the gift of this moment. The wedding had George Stephanopoulos on GMA and Robin Roberts and the AMC CEO and the ant in the car window and Donna Kelce at the fireworks show. All of them finding the words that felt right. All of them reaching for the vocabulary to describe what they saw. Mike Vrabel found 5 words. It was a fairy tale. And then one qualification. Or whatever she says in that song. And then, Gabe Jacas's injury report. It is the most football press conference response to the most unfootball press conference question. And it is, in its specific and understated way, exactly right. The song is, Today Was a Fairy Tale. It was released in 2010. Taylor Swift was 19 when she wrote it. The lyrics describe falling into a love story with someone who is a prince, with moments that feel like they belong in a different kind of story than ordinary life. Today was a fairy tale, you were the prince, I used to be a damsel in distress. Travis Kelce was not a prince. He was a tight end with friendship bracelets and sweaty palms in a Kansas garden. But close enough. Near enough to the spirit of the thing. And the night at Madison Square Garden, with the garden and the trees and the gowns and Paul McCartney and the gold books and the flower girls who were 15 months old, was close enough to a fairy tale that a New England Patriots coach, at a football podium, reached for a Taylor Swift song to describe it. That is 2026. That is what 3 years of the most public love story in American pop culture has produced. A world in which an NFL head coach, asked about attending a wedding, describes it in Taylor Swift terms without a second thought. It was a fairy tale, or whatever she says in that song. It is the most 2026 sports quote of the year. And it will probably be played at the Patriots-Chiefs game when they meet this season, whenever that is, in whatever stadium it happens, with a scoreboard showing 2 teams whose head coaches were both in the same room in July watching the most famous athlete in their league get married. That game is going to be something else. Stay close. The season is starting. And this story has so many more chapters left to tell.